Master Yoda was, in many ways, a failure. While this is a bold accusation against the Jedi Master, I will give you 3 reasons why. First, Yoda's rigid dogma left the Jedi blind to the dangers around them. By the time of the prequel era, the Republic had grown corrupt, and the Jedi Order had become overly dogmatic. They became increasingly rigid and disconnected from the realities of the galaxy. They clung to rules and rituals, enforcing a lifestyle of emotional suppression and blind adherence to outdated philosophy. The Jedi Code taught that emotion must give way to peace. It warned that attachment was forbidden because attachment breeds jealousy, which is a shadow of greed. Fear, anger, and hatred had to be stripped from a Jedi's heart. The galaxy had changed, but the Jedi had not. Yet even as the Republic decayed, Yoda remained steadfast in this belief that the Jedi's role was to serve it unquestioningly. He embodied the Jedi Council's faith in ancient codes, often ignoring nuance or new evidence. However, Yoda himself acknowledged that neither the Republic nor the Jedi Order was perfect. Despite this awareness, his actions still reflected a deep trust in the Order's traditions, even when those traditions no longer matched the needs of the galaxy. Any deviation from the code was viewed as a failure of faith, not a flaw in doctrine. This rigidity would soon bring grave consequences. The clearest warning came in 42 BBY, when Count Dooku, one of Yoda's own former Padawans, abandoned the Jedi completely. He did so out of disillusionment with corruption in the Galactic Senate and the perceived complacency of the Jedi. While his departure began as a protest against these flaws, he would eventually embrace the dark side after Qui-Gon Jinn's death at the Battle of Naboo in 32 BBY. When one of your most accomplished students walks away citing your own failures, that's not an accident, but a warning. However, Yoda didn't see it that way. The Council, and he among them, treated his departure as a personal failing rather than a signal of systemic decay. Rather than reflecting on the cracks forming in the Jedi's foundation, Yoda stood firm on his belief. He ensured that the same rigid structure remained unchallenged. This pattern of dismissing criticism and doubling down on tradition defined Yoda's entire approach to leadership. Worse still, Yoda failed to foresee Dooku's fall to the dark side. Dooku became Darth Tyrannus in secret, helping orchestrate the Separatist crisis. Meanwhile, the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, the most powerful Force user in the galaxy, remained unaware that his former Padawan had become a Sith Lord. He only discovered the truth when Dooku revealed his dark powers during the Battle of Geonosis. Such an event demonstrated how the Sith had effectively hidden in plain sight. This was not just a failure of perception, but also reflected the limitations of the system Yoda led. The Clone Wars would later expose just how dangerous this inflexibility had become. When the Clone Wars erupted, the Jedi became generals. They became warriors, leading legions of soldiers bred for battle and fighting a war designed by their enemies. They believed they were serving peace, yet they were puppets in a conflict orchestrated by the Sith. Though Yoda acted with good intentions, his adherence to tradition prevented him from seeing how the Sith had turned the Jedi's own principles against them. Second, his suppression of knowledge created even deeper vulnerabilities. The archives grew thicker, yet carefully filtered over the centuries. Holocrons, Sith artifacts, and ancient texts required Council permission and clearance levels. While canon confirms that certain darkside texts and Sith artifacts were restricted to Jedi Masters, there is no direct evidence that Yoda personally removed Sith holocrons from the archives. However, he did advocate caution in studying them. Furthermore, he treated these crucial pieces of knowledge as too dangerous or incomprehensible for minds he deemed weak. His intent may have been noble, but in doing so, he restrained the very curiosity that once defined the Jedi. His students faced the galaxy half-blind, while their enemies studied freely. Within the Council chambers, even the Masters themselves lacked full information. As a result, the Jedi knew of the Sith only through ancient doctrine. They believed the dark side to be eternal, something that could be defeated through discipline. Master Yoda never considered that understanding darkness might be the only defense against it. When a vision of Order 66 began to surface, Yoda dismissed them, a decision that would cost thousands of Jedi their lives. Early in the Clone Wars, Yoda meditated on Kashyyyk and received an unclear vision through the Force. It showed him Clone Trooper Jek's emotions shifting from disbelief to an overpowering need to obey some unknown command. The meaning was vague, more feeling than image. Yet even this fragment hinted at something deeply wrong with the clones. Yoda's skepticism about visions prevented him from realizing the true importance of what he had seen. He took no action. He told no one. He didn't investigate the clones or question why the Force would show him this specific future. Instead, he buried the warning and continued leading the Jedi into battle alongside the very soldiers who would eventually execute them. But everything changed when ARC Trooper 5's uncovered physical evidence that could have prevented the massacre. The warnings kept coming. When the Jedi Council learned that Count Dooku had secretly commissioned the clone army, alarm bells should have been deafening. The Sith created your military. The enemy designed the troops you command. Every strategic instinct should have screamed danger, but Yoda vouched for the clones anyway. At his insistence, the Council testified to the clones' loyalty and actively concealed Dooku's role in their creation. Yoda believed the Republic would panic if the truth leaked, so he chose deception over transparency. He chose political stability over the safety of his own order. Then came the inhibitor chips. When ARC Trooper 5's uncovered the truth about control chips implanted in every clone's brain, he brought evidence directly to the Jedi. This mechanism would allow clones to be turned against their Jedi commanders. Fives risked everything to deliver this warning. He died trying to expose the conspiracy. Still, the Council, led by Yoda, accepted the cover story. When Clone Trooper Tup experienced a malfunction that caused him to execute his Jedi general, the Jedi were told it was caused by a virus, not the chips. The Council stressed that the inhibitor chips in every clone's brain were necessary for stability and nothing more. They disregarded Five's warnings about a larger conspiracy and took no steps to remove the chips. Once again, Yoda chose to trust the system over the evidence in front of him. Even after ignoring this evidence, Yoda continued to receive warnings. When he secluded himself on Dagobah seeking answers from the Force, he saw Order 66 again in another vision. The Force was screaming at him and showing him the catastrophic future. Yet neither he nor the Council fully pieced it together in time. The dark side had clouded their vision. Then came the moment Yoda had been warned about, and the consequences were beyond comprehension. When Palpatine issued the command, clones across the galaxy turned on their Jedi commanders in an instant. On Megiddo, clones blasted Ki-Adi-Mundi from behind, cutting him down mid-stride. On Cato Neimoidia, Plo Koon's fighter exploded in the sky, shot down by the pilots who had flown beside him through countless battles. On Seleucami, Stas Ali was vaporized by her own speeder escort. On Felucia, Aayla Secura was surrounded by clones she had fought beside for years, and they executed her without hesitation. Across the galaxy, thousands of Jedi fell in minutes. Masters who had survived years of brutal warfare died in seconds, while Padawans were gunned down before they could even understand what was happening. Even in the Jedi Temple, home to the Order for 1,000 generations, became a slaughterhouse. Darth Vader and clone troopers turned on everyone inside, even the younglings, who were cut down despite looking to the Jedi for protection. Order 66 succeeded beyond Palpatine's wildest dreams. The massacre was total. The efficiency was perfect. Yoda had some warnings, the suspicious origin of the clone army, Fives' claims of a conspiracy, yet neither he nor the Council fully pieced it together in time. The dark side had clouded their vision, and Sidious's plan happened before they could prevent it. As Order 66 unfolded, Darth Sidious bragged to Yoda that he had waited a long time for this moment, and that, at last, the Jedi were no more. And he was right. The Jedi weren't defeated by superior force or overwhelming power. They were destroyed by their own leader's refusal to act on the warnings he received multiple times. Yet perhaps Yoda's most devastating failure came not from what he ignored, but from what he taught. For Yoda, emotion was the root of all downfall. Fear led to anger, anger to hate, and hate to suffering. This teaching, rooted in the Jedi Code, guided the Order for centuries. To him, these weren't just guidelines. They were absolute truths that could never be questioned. But in practice, it stripped the Jedi of what made them human. When Anakin Skywalker came to him in 19 BBY, terrified by visions of Padme dying in childbirth, Yoda's response revealed the fatal flaw in his philosophy. Anakin was desperate. He was seeing the woman he loved dying, and he needed guidance on how to save her while staying true to Jedi principles. But Yoda offered no empathy, no understanding, and no acknowledgement that Anakin's fears might be valid. Instead, he warned Anakin that he must be careful when sensing the future, because the fear of loss is a path to the dark side. He told Anakin to train himself to let go of everything he feared to lose. It was the emotional equivalent of leaving someone alone in their darkest moment. Anakin wasn't asking Yoda to help him avoid attachment. He was asking for help protecting someone he loved. And Yoda told him to accept her death before it even happened. His cold response would push Anakin directly into the arms of a Sith Lord. This advice wasn't just unhelpful, it was actively destructive. Yoda's uncompromising stance left Anakin completely isolated. He had nowhere else to turn within the Jedi Order. No one would help him. No one would even acknowledge that his fears were legitimate. So, Anakin turned to the only person who offered him answers: Palpatine. The Sith Lord recognized Anakin's desperation and exploited it perfectly. He offered Anakin hope through dark-side power, claiming it could save those he loved from death. He gave Anakin what Yoda refused to provide, a path forward that didn't require him to abandon everyone he cared about. And when Anakin stood at the crossroads between light and dark, he remembered Yoda's cold dismissal and chose Palpatine's false promises instead. The result was immediate and far-reaching. Anakin knelt before Palpatine and became Darth Vader. He led the clone assault on the Jedi Temple, cutting down Jedi he had fought beside during the Clone Wars. He murdered younglings who looked to him for protection. He traveled to Mustafar and slaughtered the Separatist leadership, tying up Palpatine's loose ends. And when Obi-Wan confronted him, Anakin had become so consumed by the dark side that he tried to kill his own master and closest friend. Padme died anyway. The very thing Anakin fell to the dark side to prevent happened regardless, and Vader spent the next 2 decades as Palpatine's enforcer, hunting down the surviving Jedi and crushing any spark of rebellion across the galaxy. Every atrocity Vader committed, every Jedi he hunted, every innocent life he destroyed traces back to that moment when Yoda told Anakin to let go instead of offering real help. The Jedi Code teaches that attachment leads to the dark side. Anakin's fall seemed to prove this, but it wasn't the attachment itself that corrupted him. It was the Jedi Order's refusal to acknowledge attachment as part of being human. Yoda's doctrine created a trap: feel nothing or fall to darkness. There was no middle ground, no attachments, no understanding that love itself could be a source of strength. Despite this tragedy, Master Yoda learned nothing. 20 years later, Luke Skywalker arrived on Dagobah with the same passionate nature as his father. Yoda immediately labeled Luke impatient, reckless, and too much like Anakin. The Jedi Master tried to compress decades worth of training into weeks in Luke, all while concealing crucial information from him, the true identity of Darth Vader. In the middle of training, Luke experienced visions of his friends suffering. When he wanted to take action, history repeated itself exactly. Yoda demanded that he abandon them so he could complete his training. The same cold doctrine that drove Anakin to darkness now pushed Luke toward the same cliff. Yet Luke refused. He left Dagobah against Yoda's wishes. He went to save his friends. And later, when he faced Darth Vader on the second Death Star, he made a choice that defied everything Yoda had taught him. He threw away his lightsaber and refused to kill his father. That choice, the one Yoda told him not to make, saved Anakin Skywalker and destroyed the Sith. Luke's love for his father redeemed Vader. His loyalty to his friends inspired the rebellion. His emotional connections became the foundation of a new Jedi Order that would surpass the old. All the traits Yoda saw as weaknesses in his students were what made Luke successful in defeating the Empire. Only Luke's rejection of Yoda's philosophy, his choice of compassion over detachment, ultimately brought balance to the Force. In the end, Yoda never understood that attachment could be a Jedi's strength. He spent 900 years perfecting a teaching philosophy that created its own failures. He produced technically skilled warriors who crumbled under emotional pressure. He trained powerful Force users who turned to darkness rather than face their own feelings. Yoda's failures weren't accidents. It was his own wisdom that doomed the very galaxy he'd been saving for centuries. The galaxy paid the price. The Republic fell while the Empire rose. Yoda spent decades hiding on Dagobah instead of taking responsibility for his role in the catastrophe. The final proof that Yoda's way was wrong came when Luke Skywalker saved the galaxy by practicing compassion. Attachment redeemed Vader. Love destroyed the Emperor. What Yoda said would lead to darkness became the light that saved everyone. To see how Count Dooku went from Yoda's most promising student to the Sith Lord who orchestrated the Clone Wars, watch his full story next.